Okay, I hope I'm audible to all the students who are attending this lecture of Introductory Microeconomics course. Okay, in the last lecture of Introductory Microeconomics, we were talking about demand. Our main topic is demand, supply, and elasticity. And in the last lecture, we had a good discussion on demand. Okay, now in this lecture, we talk about supply. In this lecture, we talk about supply. So all students know what does supply refer to? Supply refers to the amount of goods. Supply refers to the amount of goods that the seller stands ready to sell at the existing prices at the given period of time. Okay, so when we talk about supply, it is from the point of view of the firms or the producers. So supply refers to the amount of goods which the seller is willing to sell at the existing prices at a given period of time. All students should be familiar with the law of supply. Just as we had discussed about the law of demand in the last lecture, we talk about law of supply. Other things being constant, a rise in the price of own commodity, increases the quantity supplied, of that particular commodity. This simply means that keeping all other factors constant, if price of any commodity goes up, the producers will be willing to supply more of that commodity and vice versa. That means there is a positive relationship between price of the commodity and supply of the commodity. Okay, then we talk about supply schedule and supply curve. So you should be familiar with the supply schedule and the supply curve. Now supply schedule is a tabular representation and supply curve is a diagrammatic representation. Okay, so I can draw a supply schedule for all of you. Price, which is in rupees, and quantity, which is in units. Quantity supplied in units. You can see as price increases from 10 to 30 to 40 and so on, supply increases from, we can take any number. Suppose we take 20. So 20 to 40 to 60 to 80. You can see that the supply curve is linear. In this, if I plot this schedule, the supply curve will turn out as linear. Why? Because for every 10 rupees increase in price, supply is increasing by 20 units. You can see for every 10 unit increase in price, supply is increasing by 20. So guys, if I find the slope, I measure price on the y-axis, I measure quantity supplied on the x-axis. Slope is nothing but change in y by change in x. Okay, so for the first observation we can't find it, but from the second observation onwards, you can see it's 40 minus 20 upon 20 minus 10, which is how much? 2. 60 minus 40 upon 30 minus 20, which is again 2. 80 minus 60 upon 40 minus 30, which is again 2. So you can see that the slope is a constant every time. It's equal to 2. So if you plot this on the graph, on a graph paper, if you plot this schedule, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, we have price and quantity supplied. If you plot this schedule, it's going to come out as upward sloping linear. But I want to clear right from the beginning, guys, supply curve cannot always be linear. I have drawn one particular case where the slope of the supply curve is a constant. That is why it is linear. But if the slope is not a constant, it can be an upward sloping curve instead of a linear line. So please do not be under the impression that supply curve will always be linear. It will always be upward sloping because of law of supply, but it may not be linear. I have drawn a linear curve because the supply schedule which I have chosen has slope as a constant, which is 2 in every case. So you can clearly see that supply curve is upward sloping. As price goes up, producers are willing to supply more quantity of that particular commodity. So far, I hope all students are clear. Now, moving forward to the difference between market supply and individual supply. Again, in the last lecture, we had talked about market demand versus individual demand. The same thing goes for supply as well. Okay, so then we talk about individual supply. Individual supply represents supply of the commodity by one particular firm. It represents the supply of a commodity by one particular firm. And if I talk about market supply, you know the answer. Market supply represents supply of the commodity by all the firms in the market. Okay, it represents supply of the commodity by all the firms in the market. So what we learn is, thus mathematically, if you look at it, market supply is the horizontal summation. It is the horizontal summation of the individual supply curve. Or is the horizontal summation of individual supply schedule. Okay, so I can quickly show you a schedule. This is price. Again, let's take it in rupees. Quantity supplied by firm A, quantity supplied by firm B, assuming that in the market there are only two firms A and B. What will market supply be? We horizontally add the individual supplies at every price. So suppose, guys, this is our price. Okay, I can arbitrarily take any values. So these are the individual supply schedules. How will I find market supply? At the price of 10, I add 5 plus 20, 25. Then 15 plus 30, which is 45. 25 plus 40, which is 65. And 35 plus 50, which is 85. So at every price, we are horizontally adding the individual supplies to get the market supply. Okay, and I can show you the concept of market supply using a diagram as well. Okay, so we have the origin. On the x-axis, we have quantity supplied. On the y-axis, we have price. Okay, this is one individual supply curve by firm A. This is supply curve by firm B. Okay, now at the price of OP, quantity supplied by firm A is QA, quantity supplied by firm B is QB. If I talk about market supply, diagrammatically, I'm going to add QA and QB. This is going to give me my horizontal intercept is going to come here, somewhere here, QA plus QB. And if I plot it, you will see that the market supply curve will be more flatter. This is supply curve of the market. So one point of note which all students can write, market supply curve will always be flatter. It will always be flatter than the individual supply curve. Since it's the horizontal summation of individual supply curves, it will always be flatter than the individual supply curve. Or guys, another way of saying it, or I can say that my market supply curve is more elastic than the individual supply curves. Why is it more elastic? Because again, it's covering all the firms. So for any change in price, for any given change in price, responsiveness of market supply will be more than responsiveness of individual supplies. So I can say that supply curve will be more elastic than the individual supply curve, the market supply curve. Okay, so till here, any student has a doubt, you can unmute your mic and ask if you have a doubt regarding this topic. Okay, no doubts. So moving forward, let's talk about factors affecting the supply curve. So our heading is determinants of supply. So let's talk about what all factors affect the supply curve. So obviously the first factor is own price of a commodity. We know the relationship. First factor is own price of a commodity. As price goes up, price of own commodity goes up. Own commodity means commodity in question. As price of own commodity goes up, quantity supplied goes up. We have upward movement along the same supply curve. Upward movement along the same supply curve. Guys, the supply curve itself will not shift. It will lead to upward movement along the same supply curve, also called expansion in supply. It's also called expansion in supply. If I draw a diagram, it's going to look like this: quantity supplied, price, supply curve. When price goes up, supply also goes up. From OP to OP1, supply goes up from Q to Q1. This is called expansion in supply. And guys, exactly the opposite is going to happen. As price of own commodity falls, quantity supplied falls, which implies downward movement along the same supply curve. Downward movement along the same supply curve, also called as contraction in supply. Diagrammatically, you can see it. Everything is the same. I'm drawing smaller diagrams so that the screen can be utilized properly. So from OP, when the price falls to OP1, quantity supplied falls to OQ1. So this is contraction in supply. You can see in both the cases, supply curve itself is not shifting. We are moving upwards and downwards along the same supply curve. Okay, then we have the second factor affecting the supply of a commodity, input prices. All of us know the factors of production which are used to produce any commodity. In general, we can call them as land, labor, capital, entrepreneur. To land, we pay rent. To labor, we pay wages. To capital, we pay interest. And to entrepreneur, we pay profits. Okay. Now, if any of these input prices go up, so I can make the first point here. If the input prices go up, it implies marginal cost of the firms go up. All of you know what is marginal cost, right? Although when we'll be having the lectures on cost, we'll discuss more about marginal cost. But for right now, you can take marginal cost as the change in total cost. So marginal cost is nothing but TCN minus TCN minus 1. Or if I say this in words, marginal cost is the additional cost from producing one more unit of a commodity. Okay, if you produce an additional unit of a commodity, how much extra it is going to cost you is the marginal cost. So very simple, if input prices go up, marginal cost goes up. If marginal cost goes up, profit margins go down. Obviously, if your additional cost is going up, your profit margins are going down, which implies firms will be willing to supply less. Firms will be willing to supply less, which implies supply will fall. Supply falls and the supply curve will shift to the left. Now the supply curve itself will shift. Always remember, only change in the own price of a commodity will cause movement along the supply curve. Every other factor will shift the supply curve, either to the right or to the left. So if input prices go up, marginal cost goes up, profit margins go down, firms will be willing to supply less. Supply of the commodity will fall at the same price and the supply curve will shift to the left. And similarly, I can make the second point. If input prices fall, marginal cost of the firms go down, profit margins go up, which implies firms will be willing to supply more, which implies supply goes up and the supply curve will shift to the right. Supply curve will shift to the right. So I hope students are clear with this. Okay. Now moving on to the third factor which affects the supply of a commodity. This is called technology. Now all of us know that along with the factors of production, technology also matters, the kind of technology or the version of technology which the firms are using. So within this, we can say if the firms are using advanced technology, advanced or innovative technology, or we can also say the latest technology. Okay, now the more latest technology is used, the more efficiently the output is produced. So we can say that, you can think of it like that. If I use the latest technology, that might require lesser manpower. If I use a very old technology, that might require more manpower. Now, if I use the latest technology, it will require lesser manpower, so I will have to pay lesser wages. That means indirectly I'm saying that my marginal cost is going down. So if the firms are using advanced technology, indirectly it means that some or the other way the marginal cost of the firms go down. When marginal cost goes down, rest of the story you know. Profit margins will go up, supply will go up, supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, now again guys, in this case nothing is happening to price. The price of a commodity is still constant. At the same price, supply is going up because using advanced technology reduces the marginal cost of the firms in some or the other way. The example which I have taken is that suppose a new technology has come up which requires lesser manpower. As a result, you'll be hiring less workers, you'll be paying them comparatively lower wages, okay, which in turn will cause your profit margins to go up. So you will be motivated to supply more. And the next point within this would be if the firms are using obsolete technology. If the firms are using obsolete or old technology, marginal cost in some or the other way is going to go up. Profit margins will go down. Supply will go down. And the supply curve will shift to the left. So I hope both the points are clear. Let's talk about the next factor affecting the supply, expectations. So expectations about the future price can also affect the supply. For example, suppose you come to know that price of petrol is gonna go up tomorrow. Then what will the suppliers of crude oil do? Obviously they will if you expect the price to rise in the future, you will reduce your supply today, you will wait for the future to come. So I can formulate a point here. If the producers expect the price to rise in the future, if the producers expect the price to rise in the future, they will reduce the supply today, which implies supply of the commodity falls and the supply curve will shift to the left. Exactly the opposite will happen if the producers expect the price to fall in the future. If you expect the price of the particular commodity to fall in the future, you would want to supply more today. You would want to finish your stock today itself. Because today the margins are high. Tomorrow the margins are likely to drop. So what will happen? The producers, they will increase the supply today. Which implies supply of the commodity today will go up and the supply curve will shift to the right. Okay, and I hope all students have understood about technology and expectations. In case anyone has a doubt regarding these two factors, you can unmute your mic and ask. Okay, so moving on to the last factor affecting the supply. This is a very simple one, number of sellers. This is self-explanatory. There is one point here. If the number of sellers of any particular commodity go up, Suppose the industry is making profits and more firms are attracted to the industry. So if there are more suppliers of a particular commodity, what will happen at the same price, assuming price is not changing? First of all, guys, price itself can change. If there are a lot of sellers in the market, price will go down. But we are assuming here that the price of the commodity is not changing. If the price of a commodity does not change and more sellers are added to the market, at the same price, supply will go up. So if the number of sellers of any particular commodity increase, it implies supply of that particular commodity, will increase and the supply curve will shift to the right. And exactly the opposite will happen if the number of sellers of any particular commodity fall. Suppose the industry is making losses, so some firms exit the industry. So if the number of sellers of any particular commodity decrease, it implies supply of that particular commodity will decrease and the supply curve will shift to the left. Supply curve will shift to the left. So I hope students have understood there is a direct relationship between supply and number of sellers. Okay, now all students should be familiar what we have done. The first factor, you should be familiar that the first factor which we have studied will cause movement along the supply curve. I'm just repeating it for clarity. So you can see the diagram. As price increases from OP to OP1, quantity supply increases from OQ to OQ1. This is expansion. You have done this in high school also. And when price falls from OP to OP2, quantity supplied falls from OQ to OQ2. This is called contraction. Whereas all other factors which we have done except the first factor will cause a shift. So quantity supplied, price, this is my supply. At the same price OP, supply curve can shift to the right from SS to SS1. You can see the quantity supplied has gone up, or it can shift to the left from SS to SS2, where the quantity supplied falls from OQ to OQ2. That means the first diagram represents movement along the supply curve, where movement along the supply curve is only happens because of change in own price. And the second diagram represents shifts in the supply curve, which happens because of all factors other than the price of a commodity. Okay, now guys, what we can do, we can combine demand and supply together, and let's look at the equilibrium in the market. Okay, so demand and supply together. So we have done demand, we have done supply. Let's make a diagram where we have both demand and supply, which will give us the market equilibrium. So any market, any competitive market will be in equilibrium where demand and supply are exactly equal. So this is the diagram for a competitive market, means there is perfect competition. So this is the demand curve, industry's demand curve, supply curve. Okay, and all of us know that the equilibrium will happen where the two are exactly cutting each other. Quantity in equilibrium, equilibrium price. Now guys, suppose the price in the market is above the equilibrium price. Suppose I choose this price. Suppose the price is this. Let me call this as P1. Now at this price, how much is my supply? This is my supply. How much is my demand? This is my demand. This means that at this price, there is excess supply. Excess supply is also called surplus. Now this excess supply will create competition among whom? If there is excess supply in the market, it will create competition among the producers. And when there is competition among the producers, they will fight with each other, which in turn will cause the price to fall back to the equilibrium price. And suppose I choose a price below the equilibrium price. This is P2. Now guys, at this price, how much is my demand? This is my demand, but this is my supply. It means there is excess demand. Excess demand is also called shortage. Now excess demand will create competition among the buyers. Competition among the buyers will cause the price to rise till we are back to the equilibrium price. That means guys, whether we start above the equilibrium price or below the equilibrium price, ultimately the market will converge to the equilibrium price. So we can write the 2 points. When the price is above the equilibrium price, there is excess supply of the commodity, which implies competition among the producers go up. They start bidding down the price. They start bidding down the price, which implies price ultimately becomes equal to the equilibrium price. And similarly, the second point, when the price in the market is below the equilibrium price, there is excess demand for the commodity. Excess demand is also called shortage, which implies competition among the buyers go up. They start bidding up the price, which implies price eventually will become equal to the equilibrium price. So hoping students have understood this. Okay, and now guys, in this lecture, the last thing we talk about is, suppose both the demand and supply curves are shifting. So let's talk about case 1. Both demand and supply increase simultaneously. Suppose both demand and supply increase simultaneously. Now guys, within this we have 3 cases. So case 1, case 1A. Then we have case 1B. Then we have case 1C. So case 1 is when increase in demand is more than increase in supply. This is the case where increase in demand is less than increase in supply. And this is the case where increase in demand exactly equals the increase in supply. So guys, if we draw diagrams, so we can see I'm drawing 3 diagrams on the screen. In all these diagrams, quantity demanded and supplied on the x-axis, Okay, and price is measured on the y-axis. Okay, so this is our origin in all the diagrams. Initial demand curve D0, initial supply curve S0, initial equilibrium price P0, Q0, initial equilibrium E0. Now when demand also increases, supply also increases, but increase in demand is more. So you can see that the demand curve is shifting to the right. The supply curve is also shifting, but by a tiny amount. So guys, when increase in demand is more than increase in supply, in net terms, there is increase in demand. So you can see increase in demand will create competition among the buyers. They will start bidding up the price till we reach the new equilibrium price, which is P1, and the new equilibrium quantity, which is Q1. You can see this is point E1 where the new demand and supply curves are cutting each other. At point E1, the new demand and supply curves are cutting each other. So I hope students have understood this. At the same price P0, how much is the demand? This is the demand. How much is the supply? This is the supply. You can see there is excess demand. This is the excess demand, which causes the price to rise and equilibrium moves from E0 to E1. Similarly, I can draw next diagram. Initial demand, initial supply, initial equilibrium, P0, Q0. Now demand is going up, supply is going up, but demand supply is going up by a higher magnitude. So you can see supply increase in supply is more than increase in demand. Ultimately, it is going to lead to competition among the sellers. They will start bidding down the price. So price will fall, but quantity in the market is going to go up. So when increase in supply is more than increase in demand, price in the market will fall because of competition among the sellers, but quantity in the market will rise. And guys, if both demand and supply are shifting by the same magnitude, this is E0, P0, Q0. Suppose demand and supply both shift, increase in demand exactly equals the increase in supply. Now in this particular case, will the price change? No. If demand and supply both are going up by the same proportion, there will be no change in price. But yes, since both are going up, equilibrium quantity will go up from Q0 to Q1. So I hope all students have understood these three diagrams. This is where I stop in this lecture. Homework for all the students. Draw the diagrams when both demand and supply decrease simultaneously. Draw the diagram for this case. Okay, so guys, this is where I stop in the lecture. I hope all students have enjoyed the lecture. Any doubt, you can unmute your mic and ask, or call up or mail me your doubts at divineschoolofeconomics@gmail.com. Okay, so I stop here. In case you have a doubt, rejoin using the same link.